What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord. Just finished verbally assaulting Chuck and Caleb. Welcome to the channel. Super excited to have you guys. But yeah, had to make sure to put them through at least some paces, making sure they knew exactly what they were in for. But look at them, they're still gamers, and they said, let's hit that record button. So, guys, thanks so much for coming and hanging out on the show. Appreciate you guys. So, Caleb, which one do you use Caleb? Which one do you use Chuck? For those of you who don't know.
Caleb, Chuck.
Cool. So the reason we wanted to have these guys on the channel is because very often I hear from many people, you just don't understand, Matt the Lumberjack. You just don't understand. It's hard. Yep. It's difficult to buy in almost every market and buy good deals. However, we recognize that with education and daily discipline and understanding what they're doing, that it actually can happen. So let's drop the bombshell on the audience. How old are you guys?
Oh, 19 and 20 right now.
Yeah, 19 and 20 years old. They figured out a way. They muddled through it. How many properties do you guys own?
We own 3 properties.
Right. How many units?
28.
28 units. So you guys like dealing in the commercial stuff, the bigger stuff. Love it. How does 18, 19, now 19 and 20-year-old, how do you guys get financing?
Yeah, well, it doesn't. Banks usually don't like that kind of stuff, especially when you have about $300 to your name each. So we went seller financing for our deals.
Right. So that's the key. So one of the big things that we like to talk about with folks is finding your angle, right? And your guys' angle is, hey, I can't wait till I save up a bunch of money. An investor like the Lumberjack probably isn't going to give me $100,000 or $200,000 for a down payment on a property because, let's face it, that's more money than I've ever seen in my entire life. So what you have to do is you have to start creating those relationships like Cody and Christian talk about in multifamily strategy. Kudos to those guys for making a fantastic course that you guys took, but kudos to you for actually taking those steps and implementing them. And so as you guys have gone through this process and as you guys have leveraged the lessons that you've learned in their course, talk to me a little bit about deal number one. What did that look like?
Yeah, so deal number 1, that was a 10-plex in McAllen, Texas. It was seller finance, 10% down. And then that one, we had to get some creative terms up front just to work with some cash flow stuff. You want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah, so day 1, it didn't look like fantastic, and we needed to build up a little bit of reserve because we didn't want to raise a ton of money just because it's going to be difficult for us to find partners to put down a bunch of money. Yeah. So we had 6 months, no payments.
Okay.
So it's delayed.
Yep. Yeah. So what I love about that idea is, usually what we'll talk about that is rent abatement or mortgage abatement. And so that's usually the big fancy word that some people might see in some of these seller finance deals is the word abatement. What that really means is I don't pay X for X amount of time. What most people want to do is they want to do the transaction, but these guys are right in asking for some of those things to say, hey, listen, at the end of the day, you want this transaction, A, to happen. B, you want to make sure that you're not putting us on unlevel or unstable ground to start this transaction. And so as we look at the numbers, we need to create a little bit of a cushion. So the only thing that we're going to ask for, so we don't have to ask for any relief in year 2, year 5, year 10, year 15. The only thing that we're going to ever have to ask for is right up front in the beginning to allow us to create a little bit of a reserve. Very smart. Allow us to create a little bit of a reserve so we can make sure that as things come up, that you're not going to not get your payment. That's what you have to make sure. So is that kind of the idea behind that strategy?
Yep, pretty much completely the idea. And then the guy was also just on interest rate, just wanted 4% flat. And so amortized over 45 years. We're like, okay, cool.
Over 45. Those are pretty nice terms. Those are
we can work with that pretty well. So
yeah. And 4. So again, guys, the idea here is, so at the time, 18 and 19, decent credit. Did they even check your credit?
They didn't check. Yeah, I don't think we checked it out. I didn't check mine until after.
It's probably a good idea to know what my credit is. So I can tell you, working with banks for 25 years, that's where they start. But that said, seller financing, that's great. So they really believe that you had credibility. You guys got phenomenal terms, even though it was 4 points. 4 points at any point in time was great, especially on a commercial deal. The lowest I got for rates on commercial stuff was 3.75. So the fact that you're at 4 is awesome. Now I assume are you 4% fixed on the 45?
Yeah.
Oh. And you've got 45-year debt. So you're massively lowered your payment commitment because it's on a 45-year basis.
Yep.
Do you guys, do you see ever selling this property?
I honestly, at this point, no.
right? I mean, your debt's so cheap. The amortization schedule is phenomenal. Like, why would you ever sell like that kind of cheap debt? Is there so I assume at this point now you've had it for some time, performing well,
Yeah.
seeing good returns.
Yeah, that's awesome. The returns also look a lot better when you
Yeah,
have
because
no mortgage.
we haven't owned it for that long, so we actually haven't made a payment yet. So
Yeah,
it's been pretty nice.
Our first payment's coming up, so yeah, we
Might want to have a party before that first payment. but that's awesome. And so when you guys start making that payment, have you done the math on what your returns are going to be?
yeah, it'll still be over 10%.
That's awesome. It's awesome on an asset like that. Now that 45-year debt, that's fixed at 4%.
Yep.
Holy Lord. So when people sit there and say, it's too hard, I can't do it. Listen, there are courses out there, Christian and Cody's multifamily strategy. And even better is that there are guys that have taken those lessons, actually implemented outside of Cody and Christian. They've implemented it. They've seen return. They've got amazing debt structure that quite frankly, they should never, ever, ever refinance. That debt is probably going to be debt forever, which is awesome. Is there any ability for the person that gave you that debt to call the debt without, unless it's due to non-performance?
Yeah, we actually set up a balloon on that one intentionally, just so we could pay out our investors the cash out refi. That's just something the seller wanted there, but that's just what we decided to do on that one.
Yeah. And so when's that piece happen? 10
That
years?
one's in 5 years. And we also, yeah, there's even more creativity there. We're actually working through in real time. There's another parcel of land we're gonna sell off. It doesn't do anything for us. It's just sitting on the side of the property.
Sure.
We're gonna sell it off, and if he needs a deed release of a certain amount, we'll just release it all and put another 150,000 towards debt pay down.
Nice. Yeah. So then you have that much more equity in the property. The key is trying to find, I mean, if you like the debt there though, one of the things to consider is if you like the debt there, which is 45 years, 4% debt, like that's absolutely awesome. The other idea instead of debt release is that you keep that cheap debt and then you use that to go acquire more debt and another asset. The number that you have there, I want to make sure that people don't miss it, is pure mastery when it comes to a comprehension of the math. It's pure mastery, because when you look at the process and you say, you will never get, or likely will never get 45-year amortized and 4% debt ever again. So for me, I don't debt hammer like Cody and Christian talk about in the way that they talk about it. I think I talk a lot about debt hammer, but I'm hammering down on my temporary non-fixed debt. The reason I want to hammer on that is because of risk exposure or rate exposure. When you're looking at something powerful like 45-year debt amortized at 4%, it's just spectacular. You hold on to that debt with the grip of death on it. You want to make sure you never let any of that stuff go. But one of the things I would encourage you to do is always be evaluating your debt. I have something called the buck method, best use of capital. If I have 150,000 bucks come in, the question is, what's my best use of capital? Is it acquiring another asset? Is it debt pay down? Or is it rehabbing existing units to drastically increase rents? So the evaluation and where you go from great to elite is the evaluation of debt and how that debt can create more wealth for you and a greater return. We just did a study. We looked at it on our units and we said, based on the deals that are available in the market, we can get a 12, 13, 14% based on our processes. We can get 12, 13, 14% in the market. However, we put that same amount of money into units that when they become vacant, we can actually see a 35% return on that capital. So we actually took that money, instead of buying another asset, we actually invested it in an existing asset and actually made that investment. And now we're seeing a much greater return, that 35% capital. So it's a big thing. Any thoughts on that process, guys?
That's something we need to look into a little more coming up, is just refining the process. At first, our whole goal is getting off the ground, but definitely it's going through optimizing systems now that we have a little bit of a platform.
Yep, absolutely. Acquire, standardize or stabilize, optimize, and then those guys debt hammer. And then I think debt hammer makes total sense, especially when it's adjustable rate debt. But when it's fixed rate debt and it's probably not only the house or the asset is an asset, but also the debt's an asset, then it's just something I think you want to look at more carefully and more closely. So what would you guys say was the number one contributor to you guys being successful in this endeavor?
Just in general, like with this deal, or just getting started?
Yeah, kind of both. do you think that there are different things that one made you successful in the deal or two made you successful just in, jumping in?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing that made us successful just with getting started was just not taking no for an answer and just figuring out a way to do it.
Yep.
It just, I mean, if you're looking at two 19-year-olds who have $300 in their bank account each trying to buy a property, most people are just going to laugh at us.
True.
But just kind of like taking their no and just not listening to it, just pursuing through, I think was the biggest thing on getting started.
And we just looked at so many deals.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
that's
looked at
what
a
helped us a lot. And this is so we actually knew this was a fantastic deal with fantastic.
That's the key is you got to know average, you got to know good, and then that helps you know great. And so I have 2 or 3 deals a week come across my desk. So everyone thought I was buying everything I saw last year when I did a deal a month. Nope. I was having 20 and 30 deals a month come across my desk. And I was like, yep, that one right there. That one, the day I close, I get $100,000 in equity and I start making 27% of my money. And in the next 3 years, I'll be at 40% of my money on that deal. So
No,
yeah, exactly. You look at it and you're just like, I don't care if I have to start selling, what in plasma, I'm going to do that just to make that deal work. But yeah, I think you guys, what do you think, kind of last question for you is, what do you guys envision? What are you guys trying to build this thing to?
honestly, not really sure. Just kind of one of the big things right now is we're just kind of having fun with it. It's fun to buy deals, looking at deals, figuring things out, just making things work. So I'm not really sure where we plan to go and just buy some more units right now. That's kind of the main goal.
I like it. That's smart. I mean, I think too often people are just like, I want to get to 100 units, or I want to get to 1,000 units, or I want to get to $100,000 in income or whatever. I think the big thing for me in mine was I only cared about the next deal being a great deal. That was it. And sometimes that meant that I didn't do a deal for 2 years, but I still stayed in the market every day. I still stayed aware. And the thing that I recognized that I didn't do enough in my career was be offensive. I know that might seem like a stretch, but that was the one thing that I didn't do enough. I wasn't offensive enough. I've lost out on deals where something came to market for 350. It was there for, 3 months, didn't sell, not in this market, in older markets. I just said, you know what? I just don't want to, I know the broker, I have a relationship. I don't feel right offering 300. And then the property sold for 260 and now it's worth 800. So that's a mistake that I made. I made the mistake of not being audacious enough. And I think you can present any insulting number just so long as you're not insulting them in the process of giving them the number. Something I have to work on. But
I completely agree with that. I think people they get all wrapped up in like, oh my gosh, it's going to damage my relationship with the broker somehow if I send her this low ball offer. It's like, well, chance is if it's not selling, there's a reason for that. And your low ball offer might be the one they take.
That's the thing is they might be grateful. They might be, I literally have talked to them and I've started asking more questions. And in the last few years, they were just like, I'd be grateful. At least I had something to bring to my owner and even if they say no way, it's at least something I had to bring them. And that was something I started doing a lot more often in the last few years. And we were able to put together a lot of deals. So guys, I really appreciate the time that you're taking. Do you guys have social media where somebody can find you guys and track you?
No.
Oh God.
Last second. Can you hear us?
I can still hear you, even though it says it's unstable. You're good.
Okay, yeah. Can you repeat that last part? All right.
Yeah. So where would people find you?
Yeah, YouTube. We have a YouTube channel ourselves, Caleb and Chuck, and then the same thing on Instagram.
Wicked awesome. Follow these guys. Watch the meteoric rise. It's going to be a fun ride. I'm old. I'm tired. I'm not going to be doing this like they're going to be doing for the next 25 years until they're my age. That's right. It's 25 years before they're my age. I've been doing real estate longer than these guys have been alive. But the fact of the matter is that they're doing it. They're doing it better. They're doing it better than I did it. I grew too slowly. And these guys are growing the right way, just so long as they're taking on good debt and doing good projects. I think it's nothing but up for you guys. So I appreciate you guys coming out, hanging out with us, and we'll definitely get together again soon. Appreciate you guys taking the time, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having us on.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.